Well, coming up on today's show, Mercedes teases the EQC Mystic rear. GM's electric dream in China takes a turn for the worse. And the Ford Mach 1 EV spotted on test for the very first time. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello and welcome to the Thursday, the 30th of August edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Firstly, thank you to myev.com for helping make this show. They've built the first marketplace specifically for buying, selling and learning about EVs. And along the way, you pick up a lot of tips on that website, myev.com. Whether you're buying, selling or learning, go check it out. North America only for now. I am begging them to bring it here in the UK because we're about to buy a used EV for my other half. And I could really do with something like that over here. Well, hello to our podcast partner, Sascha Pallenberg. Hello, Sascha, who listens to the podcast when he's out for a run in the mornings, who tweeted today about that Mercedes EQC. The tweet says this: 6 more days until the launch. And I can't wait. Mercedes, hashtag switch to EQ, hashtag e-mobility. A brand new video online featuring Michael Keltz, who is the engineer you may have seen in that fully charged video with Jonny Smith. And a bit of an internet celebrity he's becoming quite quickly. And racing driver Susie Wolf as well.
Today we are on the Black Forest for final test drive.
We did a lot of simulation in the beginning. Now we are in the hardware phase, so now we are on the road.
It has nearly 300 kilowatts of power. It's four-wheel drive, so that gives you a very impressive acceleration.
Up to now, we have built about 90 prototypes of this car. We had to add different new tests to get to a very customer-satisfying car.
How it feels to drive, it's fantastic, and there's no noise, because all you can hear is the wind and the nature. I absolutely need an EQ. It's a completely different experience of driving, but one that is really, really enjoyable. So I'm very impressed. Who do I speak to get one?
The EQC is a very, very important milestone for us.
Well, people sometimes, occasionally, email or tweet me to say, you do talk about Tesla a lot on this podcast. And I reply respectfully, because they're making a lot of cars at the moment and they've actually got cars for us to talk about. Well, the Mercedes EQC is slowly revealing itself ahead of a launch next week, so we will have another car to talk about very soon. And the Mercedes EQC looks like a great crossover/SUV. We're putting the puzzle together and starting to get an idea of the final picture. By the way, I suspect Mercedes have got some sort of digital campaign going on where they're going to release one of these videos a day. It's all right. I'm hooked. They've got me. On Monday, I saw the first one, which was a 14-second teaser of the front of the car. Gorgeous little LED lights at the front in a video called Mystic Detail. Then, Tuesday, the next one. For any fans of rear ends, I know there's plenty listening right now who are. They've released a video called Mystic Rear. Again, 14-second video showing a rear end of the Mercedes EQC with a single red light extending from the left to the right side and in one long single line running horizontally under the rear window. You can see the Mercedes badge lit up as well. You can download those videos, by the way, I'm talking about on the media centre of the press area on the Mercedes Canada website, which is where I found these. And the file name for it is EQC. So if there was any doubt that maybe upon the release they were going to call it something else, well, I think that the file name when you download it's a giveaway. The third video was today, and it's called, you guessed it, Mystic, but this time Mystic Interior, and it's the first shot we get of the interior. It's my favourite one so far. The instrument cluster, a bit like that long rear light, except much taller, is one long instrument dashboard, starting behind the steering wheel and then heading all the way along the dash to where the media centre would be, the centre console, and stopping before you get to the passenger airbag, for instance. But if you've seen the latest Mercedes luxury cars anyway, it's the same. If it's the same screen, but the same style, same concept, quite tall, but very, very long. Almost like ultra wide screen, if you like. In front of the driver, there are two circular digital gauges. The one on the right showing power. And above the centre stack, the infotainment screen shows a comfort setting on the left. Mercedes and Me and Apps is another icon on the right. In the top left corner, next to the home button, you can see a name, and it says Anna. Now, that suggests the car will automatically set the preferences based on the owner, but we're just putting two and two together. Might be getting 5 here, according to the Autoblog article that I read. Quick check on the specs, 70 kilowatt-hour battery. I've said it before. All right, I'll say it again. I think that's kind of small. I'd like them to come out next week at the release and go, you know what, it's a bit bigger. Because it's a big car, and I'd love it to have a bigger battery, just for the doubters, just for the criticism that I can see it would get. But it might also be super efficient, and Mercedes engineers doing very clever software-y things with efficiency. Up to 310 miles, but that would have been measured on NEDC, which is gone in days. All-wheel drive, motors front and rear, 300 kilowatts, 402 brake horsepower, and the car's going to be launched next week, September the 4th. At the official event in Stockholm before heading to the Paris Motor Show in a couple of weeks' time. Mercedes will launch a total of 10 electric cars before 2025, each of which will use the EQ. I don't think, has that been confirmed, or is that again me just speculating? I think it's very likely each of them will use the EQ prefix, and then the suffix will be maybe EQA for the A-Class, EQS for the S-Class. This is going to be the EQC, for instance. And they've been registering those trademark names in certain countries around the world. So I think it's a given, unless they were just doing it as a precaution. Well, moving on to GM, and General Motors' plans to ramp up electric vehicle production in China were set back after the automaker determined the Chinese-made batteries that it intended to use failed to meet its own performance and safety standards during testing. According to an article written late last night by Trevor Jones for WSJ.com, GM was set to enter production next month of its plug-in hybrid, the Buick Velite 6. It's a local variant of the Volt, with a pure electric version due early next year. Well, that launch schedule, according to the Wall Street Journal article, has now slipped. It's been postponed, with internal battery tests showing that the battery, those are the ones that come from A123 systems, weren't up to the quality standards that GM wanted. You can be sure that if this was Tesla having these kind of quality issues, and you want quality issues sorted, you would rather that the car was delayed by a few weeks and they got it right rather than rushed it. If this was Tesla, oh my goodness, the world would stop turning for some media commentators. This would be the end of the world. New CEO needed time. You can see the headlines now. I wonder if the reaction to GM having issues will be quite as fierce. I'll give you the answer now. I bet it won't be. Well, GM originally planned to use batteries from South China's LG Chem, but in 2016, China mandated that automakers use batteries from a list of approved suppliers, all of which are Chinese. Chinese-owned Volvo Group, however, is an exception. It's allowed to use batteries from LG Chem, licensed technology in locally built cars. Critics of that would scream protectionism, by the way. I'll put a link to the Wall Street Journal article in the show notes. You can read the rest of that for yourself. I would highly recommend it if you're interested. Well, the Nissan Leaf seems to be the vehicle of choice for explorers and those doing cross-continent challenges these days. 3 months ago, Mach Kamiński left Poland in the brand new 40 kilowatt-hour Nissan Leaf, with 8 countries and 2 continents covered by electric power on his adventures over the following 3 months. A new YouTube video was put up by the official Nissan account, and this was the description they put in the info box. Renowned Polish explorer Marek Kamiński has completed his No Trace expedition, a transcontinental journey from Poland to Japan in the new Nissan Leaf. After covering a remarkable 16,000 kilometres, Kamiński has arrived in Japan, and he faced challenges throughout his expedition, but he said the Nissan Leaf performed well and proved it isn't just a city car, it can be a reliable partner on long trips. Well, that's the kind of official corporate description on the Nissan YouTube site. He said himself, "For me," and I quote, "For me, this journey is not just about reaching my destination, it's about making a simple, brilliant change to be more sustainable. Whether in the wilds of Russia on remote Mongolian dirt tracks, or in the bustling streets of Tokyo, the Leaf has been a reliable partner throughout. The car and features like ProPilot were impressively capable in tough driving conditions, and even in remote areas with little infrastructure, we kept the Leaf charged and on the move. The Leaf gave me the opportunity to stick to my pledge and travel without a trace. I hope this is a step forward on the journey towards sustainable mobility. End quote. That the end of that gets all a little bit corporate, PR-y, communications department-y speak at times. That's kind of sort of what I do for a living, job-wise. So you can kind of spot that a mile off when the press officers get involved. But anyway, he's been given a car, or he's had access to a car, and so clearly he wants to support Nissan in what he's saying, and he's very complimentary of the Nissan Leaf. I love these kind of challenges. If he can do that, and it is a big PR exercise, but if he can travel 16,000 kilometres to Japan, then, of course, you can do a trip to the local shops, do the school run, take the kids to football practice at the weekend, and yes, an electric car will be just fine to fit into your life. Thank you very much. A very smart thing to do for car manufacturers to get behind these challenges, to prove, you know what, it's fine, EVs are okay. Well, moving on to a car company that more than once I've given a hard time on this podcast. Ford are not showing yet external signs of being anywhere near up to the competition on EVs. And I always add, I really want them to do well, because I love a fast Ford. An electric Ford SUV has been spotted on the roads of Michigan now. It's a 300-mile SUV, codenamed the Mach 1, but I don't think they're ever going to use that name, Mach 1. What is it? And again, I'm not a mega Ford fan in terms of kind of the heritage of the company. I used to like this kind of sort of the fast Fords and the Cosworths and stuff of the 90s when I was kind of really getting into cars as a teenager. But I gather that the Mach 1 name is quite legendary in Ford history, and some of those Ford fans don't want it being used on an electric SUV. So I think this is probably like Mach 1, I reckon, is like the code name for their first SUV. The pictures, which have come on the internet today, show fake tailpipes, two of them added either side. It looks like they've even added some fake diesel dust and soot above the exhaust to make it look real. Wow, that's attention to detail. And a sticker above on the side saying diesel fuel only. We're not being tricked. It's clearly an EV. You can see that kind of flat underbody of it, which is where the batteries are being protected. Carwhale say that our spy sources suggest that to throw people off, Ford has covered up the EV charge point and fitted a sooty exhaust pipe on the body of an old Escape. However, this test car is significantly larger than an Escape and seems to have a proper third row. We even suspect the Mach 1 name may be a project code name. So yeah, kind of that's how I think I feel the same as that. And that when the crossover is actually launched in 2020, it'll be called something else. Ford is spending big money on retooling its Dearborn facility for the production of EVs, and this Mach 1 will be the first car to roll off the assembly lines, so the Carwhale article. In contrary to that, I've heard that the Ford EVs are going to be made at a plant in Mexico, so I guess we'll see. And Ford have a Team Edison, which they've created. Not quite a totally separate company, from what I understand, but certainly operating at arm's length. Is that the best way to describe it? With more autonomy than some corporate teams get, in order to be more agile, behave like a startup, a bit like Tesla, make decisions quickly, and, if I'm being honest, and catch up with companies like Tesla. Well, you know this whole thing about cars having to make a noise? I'm not convinced by this, by the way. The US government wants to make electric cars noisy now, on a mandatory basis. After 3 years, a government body has yet to answer a question that Ford put in about Ford police cars, which are EVs in the future, being exempt. This is according to a Verge article. In order to prevent road injuries, the US National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, issued a rule requiring all electric EVs starting in 2020 to emit a noise at 19 miles an hour or under. That's about 30 k's. 3 years ago, in 2015, Ford asked NHTSA if they were allowed, when they were making Ford police cars, which are EVs from 2020 onwards, if there could be some sort of switch to turn it off and on. You know, because if you're one of the cops and you're hunting down a perp, a crim, in the middle of the night, it's a parking lot, it's deserted. There's a couple of street lights on in some kind of supermarket, car park somewhere, there's a dodgy deal going on in the corner and you want to approach in silence. If you're the cops, you don't want to have this like, meh, 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 you know, when trucks reverse and buses go backwards, whatever stupid noise they're going to make our EVs have at 90 miles an hour. And I'm not convinced by this noise at all. But anyway, that's kind of going to be a giveaway, because the crims are going to be in the car park doing the dodgy deal. There's a drug deal going on. And all of a sudden, meh, 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 the cops are coming, right? So Ford asked, can we turn it off? And they never replied to that. The inquiry was never addressed fully. So who knows? Maybe electric cars from Ford in the future will have this on-off facility. Wouldn't it be nice if we all had that, by the way? Hydrogen is something that gets people very het up on the internet. I follow many EV people on Twitter, and I follow a few hydrogen people because I genuinely want to learn about hydrogen. It seems... So where I am at the moment, it seems like it's not a good solution for personal transport, but where the infrastructure is important, things like boats and planes and railways, it's a really intriguing technology. Not ready yet, but intriguing. And then these fights kick off on the internet, and it's the worst of Twitter. The largest supplier of hydrogen fuel to cars in Norway is a company called Hyop, or Hyop, Hyop, and it seems to be shutting down the operation of its 5 hydrogen stations, according to this Norwegian article in e24.no. Now, I'm relying on Google Translate here. The company announced, though, in a press release, the hydrogen stations will be closed on September the 1st. That leaves only Uno X, another provider, with just 2 stations in Norway, offering hydrogen now to cars. They announced on their website that they do want to increase their presence, though, in 2019. If you fancy a little Google Translate and see if you can work out if that's what they were saying, I'll put a link in the show notes. Well, on to Pebble Beach. We've gradually been getting through the amazing concept cars shown at Pebble Beach this year. You've got to love Pebble Beach, says the BMW blog. But they're not blogging about BMWs. Concept cars and from certain companies are beautiful, they say, when they debut in Monterey, California at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, and are always jaw-dropping, according to the BMW blog, designed to pay homage to the original Silver Arrow, a highly successful Mercedes-Benz W125 racer from 1937. The EQ Silver Arrow is an all-electric single-seat beauty. We've talked about it on this podcast before. Well, now BMW blog are really getting behind it. Obviously, they say, we are BMW enthusiasts, but above all, we're car enthusiasts, and this new EQ Silver Arrow is flat out awesome. It has a body structure made from carbon fibre. Alubeam silver paint makes it look like it's painted with liquid metal, a single-seat driving position, and quite possibly the coolest wheels I've ever seen on any car, concept or otherwise, in a very long time. And how wonderful. Okay, they blog about BMW all day, but they're giving some props to Mercedes and showing them some love, and that's a nice thing to do. Well, a nice thing to do on the internet. Well, hello to our latest 2 friends on Patreon. Hello to Todd Oakes. Old Oaksy is following me and being a supporter of the podcast. Thank you, Todd Oakes, and Marcel Ward, a new executive producer of this podcast. Marcel the Legend Ward. Thank you, sir. You're a fine man, and I will work very hard on this podcast to bring you the best show we possibly can, including a brand new feature called Question of the Week. In the comments of YouTube and Facebook and the email, then please let me know about what you think each week. This week's Question of the Week, set by myev.com. How much do you spend on charging your EV at home? Has it made a difference to your household bills? And what we're looking to do here is to tap into the knowledge of existing EV owners so that EV curious people who listen to the podcast can get an idea of how much their bills might change when they go EV. I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the 71 actually, patrons of this podcast, whose generosity means we get to make this show entertaining and hopefully informing thousands of listeners every day around the world about a brighter future. No, by no means do you have to check out the page, but if you were curious about what it's all about, you can have a look at patreon.com/evnewsdaily. On the podcast pages, we have 226 previous episodes online for free. The archive will always be free. iTunes and all the rest. The blog is evnewsdaily.com. If you can leave me a review on any of those places, that'd be amazing. And you can say hi on the socials. On Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, just search EV News Daily. Have a really wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.